Welcome to this Real Skills workshop. Help you be calm and confident. What stops you from expressing yourself? And let's clear that together. I'm Rick from Thriving Now. I'm here with Kathy Vartuli from Thriving Now and the Intimacy Dojo. Um, Kathy, do you sense that there were some things that you needed to clear in order to show up for a call like this?
Oh,
Um,
yeah. It's been an ongoing process. I'm naturally really, really shy. And I think Rick and I did our first call together like 14 years ago or something like that. And I had those long legal pads. It was an hour and a half call, and I had 16 pages filled from top to bottoms with notes. And I was so nervous I took a Xanax before. And you can hear, I listened to it the other day, and I'm like, you can tell I'm scared out of my mind. And now it's like, hey, Rick, we're doing this topic. We have a few bullet points. We've also practiced a lot. But being expressive and letting yourself share with other people is a scary thing for our survival brain. It wants to hide in the bushes. It doesn't want us to show too much because then people learn where our soft underbellies are, where they can hurt us and they might judge us and they might try to hurt us or they might whatever. They might think less of us. There's all these fears we have. And I think especially after COVID, I got rusty, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But a lot of the shoulds I had about expressing myself, I noticed them really clearly because it was much easier for me to do some things before COVID than it was after because I got really rusty about doing like I hadn't practiced in a while. So I think this is a great topic because one of the gifts that being shut down and like kind of having that still point and then coming back, we get to see things in a different way. And very rarely in our lives do we have a chance to kind of reset and just look at things. So if we can come back now and see more clearly where we have patterns, just because we've had that quiet time and now many of us are starting to connect with, we're trying to people again. Um, it's a gift in that we can look at it new and clear those things so we're not carrying them around for the rest of our lives. So if you're here tonight, please congratulate yourself. You're giving yourself the opportunity to clear things that you might not have ever looked at this clearly before. So I just want to honor you for your courage and your dedication to living a better life.
this One of my visions around emotional freedom for myself and for all is that creativity is an option that we feel like we can embrace, that we learn the skills that allow us to discern kind of what's going on inside of me as I relate to me, my thoughts, my energy, where I am, my desires, yearnings, traumas, and other things, and to be able to express ourselves. I call that artistry. I'm not the first to call it that. I can't remember where I even read it. That's one of the beautiful things about language is that it can spread. And so when I think about expressing ourselves, um, we we get in places, and we've Kathy and I have touched on this. If you didn't see our workshop around subconscious blocks, that's available to you. If you didn't see the one about being stalled, which is a little different from being blocked or stuck, that's another really good workshop. And they're available to you at thrivingnow.center. And tonight, what we're going to be touching on are a little bit of twists, things that um, people that pay a lot of attention to expression and helping others express themselves, because that's what I want. It's to help others express themselves, whatever that authentically looks like for you. So, if you were on the call early, Kathy invited you to think about an area of your life, could be art, love, expressions in business or service, um, to be in your physical body as an expressive presence in the world, or in your home, whatever it is that you'd like to express yourself more around to tune into one thing. Because one of the things we've learned as emotional freedom coaches is that if you take the one thing, maybe it's not even the biggest thing, but you take one thing, there's like a holographic aspect of that that spreads out and touches the other things that you want to do as well. And so, yeah, we're we're going to be engaging together around three different aspects here. Can I, is it okay if I introduce them just briefly, or would you like to just go one, two, three? Kathy.
I'm fine if you introduce them, but I'd like to add one more. Like, I think that if we understand why we need to do something, it lets us remember it better. And I believe that anyone that's attracted to the Thriving Now group and Rick and I, you want to have a really fulfilling life. You want to have richness and connection and experiences that really matter to you. And when we're not expressing ourselves, it's very, very hard to have that kind of life. We certainly can have boundaries. We don't have to express ourselves to everyone, and we can say no at times. But for a very, very long time, I was terrified of other humans, and I wouldn't express myself. There was nothing for people to connect to, and people were not. I wasn't registering to people. There was nothing for them to remember, and I've always felt like kind of disconnected and bored and lonely at the same time. And as I started taking risks and expressing myself more, people could connect with me. And that gave them permission to share a little bit back with me. And there started to be a richness in when I would connect with people, or when I let myself draw or do something where I'd really let myself out rather than pretending and trying to do it all with my head. um, there was definitely a aliveness to what I was doing. And I think when we can express ourselves, whether we're just by ourselves or with other people in different situations, we get a richness and a joy that makes life really worth living. So, it's easy to say I'll do it tomorrow. I used to do that all the time. And then it was like 33 and I hadn't done it yet. Um, and I wondered what was wrong with me. And I was just not sharing myself. I wasn't opening up. And we want to help you break down those fears in a really healthy way. So you're still respecting your boundaries. We're not expecting you to like run naked down Main Street or anything like that. We're not, we want you to find your own balance, but to open up a little more where it's safe and it feels good so that you can have that richness in your life. So Ricky, yeah, I just wanted just to add that in.
Mhm. So we're going to be exploring some what I call magical misconceptions. And we're also going to be touching on fresh fears, fresh fears. And most of us that have done a lot of trauma work and things where we're aware of the landscape of fears that kind of are typical for us. Um, Fresh fears, especially for expression, are things that the more we're expressing ourselves, I believe that we run into fresh fears. It's like, oh, I've never posted a video before. Oh, the day after I post the video, I see a comment on somebody else's video who I really like that's really mean. And now my body's reacting. And so that's an example. And then we're going to go into the clearing and activating and being, I'm going to use the term being a bit more of a pro. Um, I believe that um, we expect the person we're going to professionally to have prepared themselves to do their professional work. And if your self expression matters to you, I want you to be aware and to have some tools for how to drop in and tune to and engage with something that matters to you, not as well it'll happen someday, but as something that you're aware of that requires some energy. For me to be here required energy, preparation, um,
Especially since
uh,
the baby was up at
mental,
4 this
physical. I've
morning.
been up since 4 o'clock, and so for me to drop in and be here in an in a reasonably centered, robust way required energy. And which leads me to the first magical misconception that I had, which was this should be easy. Anyone else have an idea in their mind that if you're good at something or want to be good at it, if you really like it, if it means something to you, if you've been practicing it for a while, that it should be really easy
Yeah.
to just like go from work to writing your book or go from tending to a child to writing an email or updating a website to going and doing accounting or even just
I,
emptying the dishwasher.
I think of the analogy like there's someone sending around Facebook that people are watching the Olympics, and there's a lot of people that are watching and they're like, I could do that because they make it look really easy. They're so prepared. It looks easy. So that somebody was saying we should include a normal human in each of those to kind of give us like a contrast, like someone who's never skated before with the roller derby or whatever. And it's like, they're whizzing around and then you see this person falling. They're like, I'm okay. Um, and I do think that we compare our insides, our messy insides, which are, we have our doubts and our confusions and our distractions to other. I see other people doing it easily. It looks easy from the outside. I don't see all the work they went through or the prep they went through. So I tell myself I should feel the way that person looks to me. And then I don't. And then I go, oh, never mind. I'm not good enough at this.
So, a magical misconception is usually where we think, this is my definition. We look at the world and we think it should be different. We look at ourselves and we think that it should be different. But it's actually magical thinking. And I don't necessarily mean in the psychological sense, but there's a quality of not really being grounded in reality. Like you said, we we can hear something that really sounds good to us, feels good to our body. We get a lot of yes about it. Let's say it's a spiritual thing. Um, that if I am in vibrational alignment with what I want, that it will just show up. And I've had people spending all of their time and energy sitting on the couch, aligning themselves vibrationally for $10 million to fly through they're not even opening a window. It would have had to come down the chimney. Now that sounds really obvious to most people that like, oh, that's not really realistic. But we do this to ourselves. We will be tired and we'll expect that we'll be able to still finish 5 things on the to-do list and that we'll be able to write with the same clarity that we did 2 weeks ago. We get this notion of it really should be different than it is. And this is one of the reasons why I really was attracted to tapping is that as an optimist, my nature is to believe in the possible. I love miracles. And I recognize that like with tapping, there was a group of people, including the founder of EFT, that were putting a lot of energy into the 1 minute miracle. And to me, that's a magical misperception. I believe that sometimes things happen and they appear on the surface to be like the Olympian, to be easy and right. And we don't always see all the preparation that went into it. And this can be a bit of damn, really? There's not this magical world where everything just comes into alignment and happens. That it's meant to be easy. I think it's meant to not be suffering. I think that suffering is something that um, we can thrive while doing hard things that take our energy. You know, and and that's I think that one of the things that I notice for our community is that a lot of people that I see such intense possibilities from have gotten into this sort of like um, it's it's a place where there isn't that dropping in and going deeper and engaging with and using the life force that we have. And a lot of what can stop that is, and maybe I'm just talking to myself and for myself, but I will sit down with a to do item to write you all a newsletter to announce a workshop. And this last week, it was a lot easier because I really have exposed more like what magical misconception have I had? Oh, well, I know how to do this. It's a skill I have. I should, keyword, be able to sit down at the computer and start writing as if there's nothing else that I need to do that is helpful to do. And then when that doesn't happen, I am more likely to bounce off it to something like Facebook. That's one of our signs. When we sit down to do something and there's a part of us that feels it should be different than it is, and we bounce. That's to me one of those indicators, a should and a bounce, that you may have a magical misconception about how life is, um, or how the work is done, or how to tune your body. Does this make any sense to
It does
anyone?
to
I'd love to
me.
hear it. The chat is open. Kathy is monitoring it while I'm sharing this. Um,
I think that there's also a factor in that for a lot of us, like I was shyer. My family was not, they weren't great role models about being expressed and being real. It was very much about pretending and image. And I had friends that kind of, I've made friends now that had grown up in families where they role modeled self acceptance and expression. So they've been practicing all that time. And it probably is easier for them. Like when I first started doing this work, it was so hard. I think some of you may have heard the story. The first time I ran a cuddle party, I was in the fetal position on my bed, crying hysterically for 12 hours. Rick had to talk me down. There were 5 of us at the cuddle party. I was one of them. It wasn't this huge thing, but it was terrifying to me. And now it doesn't take much effort, but like when we're starting to do something new, if we're comparing ourselves to other people, it's really easy to like, I should be that good. It should be as easy for me as it is for them. And I think of Rick's been sharing a lot of pictures of his daughter, Adira, in the newsletter. And I see her like she's just learned to climb stairs and it's so adorable. Like my heart just melts. But like, it's a lot. It takes her 5 minutes and she's got starts and stops. And if she told herself, she sat there and she saw her brother run up the stairs and she said, oh, it's got to be that easy or there's something wrong with me, which is something I tell myself a lot. She might stop trying and then she's never going to get good at coming up the stairs. So with self-expression and different areas of our lives, we're better or worse at it, and it's okay. There's not a should about it. Can we do a little tapping on that, Ray?
yeah. Would you lead for us?
I'd love to. So I invite you, just let yourself feel. This can be a really intense topic because us expressing ourselves is letting who we really are out in the world. And that's tender, vulnerable. It can be really, like, oh, so just be gentle about it. Karate chop. Even though I should on myself a lot,
Even though I should on myself a lot.
I should find this easier.
I should find this easier.
I don't know why I'm struggling.
I don't know why I'm struggling.
It looks really easy for all of them.
It looks so easy for all of them.
I think I'm a failure.
A part of me thinks I'm a failure.
I should just give up.
I should just give up,
Maybe it'll be
bounce off.
easier. Yeah, maybe it'll be easier tomorrow.
Maybe it'll be easy. Yeah, maybe it'll be easier tomorrow.
What if I just took a baby step right now?
What if I just took a baby step right now?
I really should on myself that this should be easier.
I really should on myself that this should be easier.
What if it's just a process right now?
What if it's just a process right now?
In the top of the head, I want this to be easier.
Yeah. I want this to be easier.
It would be good for my ego if this were easier.
It would be good for my ego if this was easier.
My survival brain would feel much happier if this was easier.
My survival brain would feel much happier if this was easy.
Because then it would think I'm really competent.
And it would just think I'm really competent.
And it wouldn't be scared that we're going to die alone.
And we wouldn't be scared that we're going to die alone.
It's okay, survival brain.
It's okay, survival brain.
This was hard for people sometimes.
This is hard for people, including me sometimes.
And some of them have practiced a whole lot more than I have.
And some of them have practiced a lot more than I have.
What if I just let myself take baby steps down this road
What if I let myself take baby steps down this road
and discovered how good I can actually be?
and discovered how good I should actually be?
Just take a nice deep breath.
So let invite you to, after you do a tapping around what's coming up for you, in this process of clearing, clearing to me means that the noise and the resistance and the, oh, it should be different, which is a kind of block, that those physiologically, mentally are lowering down in energy. The intensity, the energies can go someplace else. And one of the misconceptions that a lot of people have is that that your body can be ignored. I had that misconception for the first 30 years of my life, that I could just think my way. So being calm and confident is a physio-emotional thing that we do. And we calm ourselves. And one of the key practices can be letting yourself feel the relationship you have with gravity. Gravity is always willing to calm you a bit. If you take whatever muscle tension you have and you relax this much, you'll notice that your jaw hangs a little differently. And if your jaw hangs a little differently, your primitive brain is now able to float a little differently.
There's a
Isn't that
biofeedback.
interesting? And then your vagus nerve is like, oh, okay. It starts sending a different kind of energetic pattern, nervous system pattern. You imagine your adrenals, your kidneys, gravity, just letting them relax just a little bit so that they're more buoyant than pulled up. Your hips, the same thing. Misconception. I don't have to do it. My body should just know. Yeah, no. We sit in front of computers and talk via Zoom, sitting in an office chair or on our bed and whatever. Our body could use some support shifting. And so the calming process, again, letting that. When you have a magical misconception, it really depletes your confidence. And confidence is the action of, if I'm putting a label of confidence and confidence in yourself. It's the energy that is available to you to express. So if you think about expression, I'm expressing with my words, but I'm also expressing with my physiology. I'm expressing with my hands. My heart is now like feeling this movement. And you'll notice that just a little bit of extra attending to that, I'm more present for and with you all too. So that's a core, I think, magical misconception for most Western humans
I
is
want to.
that I can think my way into action and expression where it is a physio-emotional mental, with the physio-emotional being really core.
Yep.
Mhm.
Someone shared in the chat about they feel like they have magical misconceptions. Like we're talking about that in small ways. Like I'm going to get through the store, get through line really quickly. I'm going to the red light. They'll have no red lights. I think that we do that. Like we do that to ourselves. Like if I was a really good person or very organized or whatever, I wouldn't have these like things wouldn't happen to like slow me down. I'd love to just do a little tapping on that if that's okay.
Please.
Karate chop. If I was a really good person, none of this would happen.
If I was a really good person who had myself
Get
together,
together.
had my shit together, this wouldn't happen.
I would have no delays.
I would have I would have no delays.
Everything would be perfectly organized.
Everything would be perfectly organized.
I would get there in the shortest time indicated by Google Maps,
I would get there in the shortest time indicated by Google Maps,
perhaps
always,
even a few minutes early.
even a few minutes early.
And
Defying physics.
everything would be super smooth.
And everything should be super smooth.
But things don't always work that way.
Things do not always work that way.
And I take it as evidence that I'm not a good person.
I take it as evidence I'm not a good person doing good work.
I do that to myself.
I do that to myself.
I'm worried that I'm not a good person.
I'm worried I'm not a good person doing good work.
And then I worry all the time I look for evidence that I'm good or bad.
And a part of me is always looking for evidence of whether I'm good or bad.
If the scale went down 2 pounds, I'm a good person today.
The scale went down today. I'm a good person.
No red lights. I did good work today.
Ah, no red lights, green lights magically, just for me.
I
And
shit on myself a lot.
yeah, I have a tendency to shit on myself.
And I judge myself based on things that have no relation to my worth.
And I judge myself based on things that have no relation to my actual worth.
I invite you to take a deep breath and just notice where you might have gotten that from. So I know where I got mine from. My mom, like she had trouble with us being in pain or unhappy. She didn't want anyone to be unhappy. So I still remember I was walking one day and I stubbed my toes and I had socks on, but I stubbed my toes. I was like, ow. I think it was like 4 or 5. And she's like, if you had had slippers on, that wouldn't have happened. And I took that as I should have been more prepared. I should have done something better and then this bad thing wouldn't happen. And there were lots of little feedback things for me. But if you can start dismantling them and realize that, yeah, we can be prepared in some ways, like, going 50 miles an hour in a 20-mile-an-hour zone, you're probably going to get a ticket at some point. But, like some things you don't have to like create bad things for yourself. And life is going to happen sometimes. Some days I hit every red light, right? And they're the longest lights forever, but that doesn't mean I'm a bad person that day. Who knows what the
Yeah.
universe is trying to have me do?
And it was mentioned about like we can should on ourselves. We also should on others, and we should on reality. So again, like it's called thriving now. And I'm really grateful that the now is there for me. It's been a constant reminder for almost 20 years that if I want to be thriving now, what's involved? And if I'm shooting on reality, and if I'm shooting on other people that are part of reality, I am definitely not thriving. That is just really clear in my experience. I'm not present with what is. I'm not feeling resourceful. I'm just shooting. And we do. We're a judgmental species. It's a superpower of ours. I think more than any other animal that I can imagine, even in my fantasy. We're a very judgmental species, and it's gotten us far. And for survival, that's one thing. But if we're really wanting to be thriving now, including in our expression, it's something that I tap on when I start shooting on reality, because the essence of EFT tapping is accepting what is, even if it's an unwanted reality. And I'd like to do a tapping
Yeah.
there. And if you're new to tapping and you've been following along, you're like, what are these people doing? Thrivingnow.com/tapping is our free tapping guide, which will teach you enough about tapping and why we do it and why it's helpful
It's
for
in the
many
chat.
people. Yeah. All right. Even though there's this unwanted reality,
Even though there's this unwanted reality,
they should be different.
they should be different.
The situations should be different.
The situation should be
The
different.
world should be different.
The world should be different.
Wow, that really takes me out of what? You reflect for a moment if this is a pattern for you, what does it do to your body mind when you're shooting out there and not accepting the reality?
It really takes me out of reality.
It takes away my power.
It takes away my power.
I feel less creative, more suppressed,
I feel
less
less
free,
creative, more suppressed, less free.
and it takes me out of the present.
It takes me out of the present.
What if I accepted this unwanted reality as reality?
What if I accepted this unwanted reality as reality?
Oh, this is taking more time.
This is taking more time.
Yeah. Oh, this space isn't as kind as I'd hoped,
This space is not as kind as I hoped
or as safe
or as safe.
under the eye. Oh, this takes more effort.
This takes more effort.
And then I need to learn to tune myself,
I do need to learn to tune myself,
even when I'm tired and grumpy.
even when I'm tired and grumpy.
What if I accepted that?
What if I accepted that?
Would that free up my ability to adapt?
Would that free up my ability to adapt?
Curious if I could adapt if I accepted more and
I'm
shoulded less.
I wonder if I could adapt if I shouldn't should
Accepted
more
more
and
and shoulded less.
accepted more and should less. Sorry, guys.
No, my shoulder wants to should.
No, my shoulder wasn't a should. I really like that because I think that that's like when my mom blaming me for not wearing slippers and stubbing my toes. She didn't have to be connected with what I was feeling, and I think that we do that too. Like I was brought up like, oh, those poor people that were really poor, even though we were really poor, but the other people that were really poor just didn't work very hard. They were lazy, or if I had a cold, I should have taken more vitamin C. It just takes us away from the reality of what's there, and it lets us disconnect and blame rather than, wow, maybe there's something wrong in our society, or maybe people get sick sometimes. It's like we can, I think it's a way to distance, and that's part of being here is about being connected with people and with reality. That doesn't mean we have to be best friends with everybody, but when we're pretending something isn't real, then it's not very alive.
Even though a part of me finds accepting,
I missed it.
even though part of me finds it difficult to accept
even though
reality,
even though part of me finds it difficult to accept reality,
I really want to express myself.
I really want to express myself.
I'm tired of bouncing off.
I'm tired of bouncing off.
And I'm open to letting go of some of these magical misconceptions.
And I'm open to letting go of some of these magical misconceptions.
Up ahead. I'm curious what will take their place.
I'm curious what will take their place.
Eyebrow. What if I'm more grounded and capable?
What if I'm more grounded and capable?
Side of the eye. If I'm not expecting reality to bend to what I want.
If I'm not expecting reality to bend to what I want.
Under the eye. Sometimes I'm more tired than I should be.
Sometimes I'm more tired than I should be.
And those, what if I accepted that I'm just tired
What if I just accepted I'm tired
and worked with that?
and worked with that?
Hold on. Make that part of my energy palette.
Make that part of my energy palette.
Today we will be painting with tired colors.
Today we'll be painted
Terms.
with tired colors.
I wonder what colors are tired colors for me today.
I wonder what colors are tired colors for me today.
I've never thought of tired colors. And I'm just going to acknowledge that tapping on it has opened up for me something that feels creative. It's like, oh, today I will be painting with tired colors. My words, my energy won't be the same. But if I've accepted the reality that I was up tending to the baby at 4 o'clock, she had a lovely nap in my arm for 2 hours, with my arm falling asleep, totally trapped nap, the last half hour having to pee so bad, I was not going to wake her up, and then an hour or so, 2 hours of feeding her and being with her so that mom could sleep. If I was like old Rick in a magical misconception that she should sleep through the night, that I should be able to do with less sleep, that I should bop bop bop. Can you see how those like stack? Magical misconceptions tend to collect a crowd. And when we take any one of those and we tap on it and we give ourselves the possibility of being curious, open to how we might adapt. Um, Today, I used my energy in a different way. It was a different palette. And one of the things I know is that co-creating for me is there's an opportunity for me to pause and collect myself while Kathy is carrying the energy. Now, if I should be able to do all of this by myself, which is another magical misconception, I believe, then you don't attract and cultivate and develop with others a synergy, a way of being with each other. Yeah. So
I love that we've talked a lot about the old. These are things that a lot of us have had our whole lives. These old magical misconceptions. They are often like a fish in water. Like they're around us all the time. It's hard to see them because they are what is. And when the more we can make them conscious, the more control we have. While they're unconscious or subconscious, they can drive us. We're already feeling the way we feel. We've already told ourselves the things we're already acting the way we act because of them. And if we start making them conscious, we can catch them before they push the button on the elevator, so to speak, that takes us to the despair floor or the I'm not good enough floor. So we can grab their little hands and say, I get that you're trying to help me, and that's not where I want to go. Maybe I actually deserve to go to the happy floor, or this may be hard, but I get to try it anyway floor. And so you don't have to be mean to this part of you. It's not trying to hurt you. It's been programmed from infancy to do this. But you're being here today and looking at it, it takes courage. This is hard, not in the I am a superhero jumping over buildings kind of courage way, but wow, there's a lot of resistance and I feel tired and I really have other things to do. Like look at the Facebook cats. I haven't seen them in a half an hour. There's a lot of distractions. Like, I don't know how many people have tried to put two north magnets together. It's like the closer you get, the harder it is. Making this conscious can feel that way. There's a resistance and a drag. And the closer you get to getting that consciousness, the heavier it can feel. So if you're feeling a little heavy looking at this stuff, realize, please, your shoulder is like, I don't want you to see me. I'm throwing up a big old smoke screen right now. And you're going to feel so tired and resistant that you'll go away. And as opposed to like, wow, I'm feeling a little tired and resistant and I can still look anyway. And as we start getting comfortable with that uncomfortable feeling, we get used to it in a way, we start seeing those things that are driving us much more quickly and easily. We can build up a muscle to seeing them better and to not letting the, oh, this feels heavy, I'm going to run away feeling. It's like, it feels heavy and I felt heavy before. And, sometimes it means I need to take a break, but this heaviness kind of feels like resistance. So what if I just sat with it for a minute or two? What if I just was with it? And one of the things I encourage you to do is don't tell your brain, don't tell yourself, I'm going to sit with it till it gets too uncomfortable. Because the part of you that doesn't want you to look at it, it will amp up that uncomfortableness really fast. Just say, I'm going to sit with it and breathe for maybe 2 minutes. Like set a time, and you can increase the time a little bit over as you practice. But if you tell yourself, I'm going to sit here until I can't stand it anymore, your brain will make sure you cannot stand it right away, because those Facebook cats are much more fun than looking at these magical misconceptions. So should we talk a little bit more about the fresh fears that are coming up for a lot of people?
Yeah, and also one of the workshops that we did, the powerful pause, another really useful one for this. Fresh fears, and we're going to be taking a break here in 8 minutes or so.
Yeah.
So hmm, I I find it really helpful to sometimes add an adjective to help me discern. So discernment was one of the first things that I had to learn about my emotions. Like, what's the difference between a fear that's really sensible, like, yeah, don't walk too close to a cliff where the rocks are falling off of it, and trauma-induced fear based upon like something that happened to me that created a powerful association. Um, so we're exploring the idea that, oh, fresh fear. If you're expressing yourself, one of the things that you will notice, especially if you're expressing yourself in a way that's fresh, new, um, and that can be just you're returning to starting to do that after
After being off for a
being
little
and
while.
isolated. Like, oh, okay. Yeah. Um, so the fresh fear is, I believe that a fresh fear is something that our brain, our primitive brain, and the rest of us too has picked up is new and could be a threat. And they're probably, I trust that there is something in it which is threat-like. And um, so one of the things that a fresh fear is going to, I think, going to look like is a bit like, I don't know what to do with this. That um, it may be that your default of just running and avoiding is just so active that anytime you hit a fresh fear, you go and you just avoid it. That's okay. I was there for a long time, but one of the things that, and if I'm having difficulty articulating it, I'm going to pause for a moment. So you get an idea of something that matters to you, and you start putting energy into it, and something rises, and it's a fear. And you sort of, the energy of it is, I don't know what to do with this. Does that make sense?
I think it can feel really overwhelming. And a lot
It
of
can
us
feel
when our
overwhelming and freezing, or just like um, disorienting.
and I
Um,
know there's been times in my life where I ran my life by trying to avoid fear. So if I felt any fear, I would turn around and go the opposite direction, like kind of a Roomba. Oh, fear. Okay, fear. And I would just like kind of like bump into things and run away and never really examine what I was afraid of or what was going on. So I was really ruled by that fear. And I
mhm.
think just like a little kid, if you, or a dog or a cat, the other night went to a friend's house for dinner, and her dog found out that I was a sucker for giving my dinner to the dog. So like that dog kept every time his parents weren't looking at him, he would run over to me, and I would give him a little more chicken. So our brain, they kind of told me I could. They eventually cut me off, but I wasn't being bad guest. I was being a sort of bad guest, but the the thing that happened was the dog really associated me with food, like, oh, run over there and get it. If we always run away from fear, our survival brain, which is often very fear based, especially if we haven't reprogrammed it, will bring up fear whenever it doesn't want to do something, even if it's not actually that scary. And there's other things that can happen. We get kindling effect where during the elections, there was a lot of tension in the air. So like we're already feeling scared, and then pandemic happens and we're being scared, like everyone's gonna die, the economy, no toilet paper, no water, everyone's like, oh, what's the economy's gonna shut down. So we're already in a heightened state, and then we want to be those little rabbits in the bushes, really, really quiet. And then all of a sudden they tell us we can go out. The other night I went out to dinner and I was exhausted. Like I used to go out to dinner all the time. And I sat up and we were outdoors, we were safe, we're vaccinated. 2 hours later, I came home and took a really long nap. And I was like, what happened? My survival brain was just like, what is like, this is scary. We're not supposed to see people face to face. And it was associating that with all the 18 months of all the noise I had around me. So,
Right, and that's an example of, to me, you know, we've been the whole last year and a half have been lots of fresh fears. Um, and when it comes to expressing ourselves, to me, there's a sort of intimateness, like there's the global fears and those things. But if you take those as examples of like, oh, that's different. Oh, that I haven't seen that before. And then you bring it down personally, like you did, like I go to this event and now I'm interacting in a way like, oh, this is new. It feels like something I don't know what to do with, what to navigate with. And I'd like to do a tapping round or two, and then take our break. And then even though if I'm expressing myself,
even though if I'm expressing myself,
and that includes going out of the house these days,
that includes going out of the house these days,
there may be fresh fears,
there may be fresh fears.
and that's okay.
And that's okay.
Yeah, fresh fears are a part of life.
Fresh fears are a part of life.
I wrote, what if fresh fears are a part of life?
What if fresh fears are a part of life?
What if fresh fears are part of life?
What if fresh fears are a part of life?
Under the eye. What if me believing they shouldn't be there
What if me believing they shouldn't be there
is one of those magical misperceptions,
is one of those magical
misconceptions,
misconceptions?
misconceptions? One of those, I'm beginning to think I have a magical misconception
I'm beginning to think I have a magical misconception, but I
that,
like
that
it.
there's that there's that there shouldn't be any fresh fears.
That there shouldn't be any fresh fears.
I should have all my fears taken care of.
I should have all my fears taken care of.
And expressing ourselves comes with fresh fears.
Expressing ourselves comes with fresh fears.
That's why people say they're afraid of change.
That's why people say they're afraid of change.
What if they're just fresh fears?
What if they're just fresh fears?
And I can be surprisingly, how would you like to be? Like calm and confident?
So
And I could possibly be calm and confident anyway.
and I could possibly be calm and confident anyway. I noticed some resistance in myself, like, oh, I no fresh fears. Nope, nope, don't want any of those. I have enough of the other. So that was interesting. Um,
And the cool thing, and we'll take a break here. I believe that fresh fears are a perfect place to develop the real skill of discerning, calming, getting clarity, and finding the orientation, the right distance, right depth, the the way of being with the reality. And if it's just if it is a truly something that is utterly imaginary, and I tend to think that most people that are expressing themselves are going to run up against things like other people's behavior and attitudes. And the old fear can be like, I'm afraid of being seen. Yeah, that's a deep current. The fresh fear is like, this is something I want to do, and this is some feedback I got back in that comment or this email, and it's activating me. Oftentimes we go back and we go back really deep and dredge. I believe that there's a possibility too. It's a baby step. Just take what's coming up right now, let go of the perception, the conception that it shouldn't be there. Like interacting with others should be easy and kind and perfect and safe. Um, I want to live in that magical world. I'm doing a lot to support that, and it's not reality. And so when I come up against something like that, I'm finding that there's a real fruity, worthwhile baby step to be with what actually has shown up, not something too distant that I'm imagining, and not something necessarily that's always going back to teenage years. Does that make sense? And
yeah,
so if that's our context, and we want to be able to drop in with our 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 misconceptions that might be blocking us, our fresh fears that are like having us pause, and that's what we're looking for is the pause rather than the run or the fight. Um, let's take 7 minutes, tend to your body's needs. We're going to pause the recording,
and when you
and
come
if
back, we're gonna give you tips on how to navigate this. So
right, right, I'm going to pause the recording. Welcome back. And if you're watching this on the replay, as most of the people in our community will be, I invite you, if you didn't take a break there, to actively pause. There's power in the pause. It's an opportunity for your energy to process, clarify, settle, recharge. Um, yeah,
love it.
not a requirement. But it is a hearty invitation.
Yeah. Can
So,
we dive into the ways
yeah.
people can make steps forward?
Mhm.
One of the things that Rick and I talk about a lot of the time, and you may be sick of it, I invite you to tune in fresh, even if you've heard this before, is baby steps. I'm going to try to explain it a little different way to see if it lands on you a little different. So the other day, I had to go to a work meeting. I had not been in the office for a meeting for 16 months. I was really scared. I was just, for some reason, all this fear came up because I hadn't done it. And it's very comfortable being here in my sweatpants and my bunny slippers on a Zoom meeting, and most of the time the video is not even on. So if my hair is sticking up, no one knows. Um, if I what I had to do is break it into baby steps. If I tried to just say, I'm going out the door to this meeting, the fear was just, I was like, oh, too much. My system just was not used to this anymore. It's like too many things. So what I did was I broke it down into the smallest steps that I could handle, that I had a tolerance for the discomfort. So part of that was like, for some reason, putting on my clothes was fine, but putting my shoes on felt very scary. So I just got my shoes. So I broke it down to getting my shoes, sitting on the couch with my shoes, putting on one shoe and breathing, putting on the other shoe, realizing I didn't have to go out the door the minute I got my shoe on. So I puttered on Facebook, saw a few cats, watched a couple videos, and then getting my keys. So like breaking it down into baby steps. So it's another thing. Like if we say I'm going to do something until I feel too discomforted to do it, what you can do is break it down into the smaller steps and say, I'm at least going to put my shoes on, even if that's very uncomfortable. Maybe I take them right back off again, but I'm going to at least put my shoes on. Whatever that is, because we all have different tolerances and different times where when I'm really resourced, things can seem really easy, and days that I'm really tired or feeling more nervous, it can seem like a big thing. So just deciding, okay, I'm going to do 5 minutes of this, or I'm going to put my left shoe on and walk around the house with one shoe on for a little while, or whatever it is, it starts teaching our system that there's not really a fear. The fear is not necessarily real. So my survival brain is like, if you go to this meeting, it had all this fears, like everyone will laugh at you. They'll see the COVID-20 you put on. They're going to know that you haven't been out of the house in 16 months or what. I have been out of the house, but not a lot. But like, there's all these fears coming up versus, so like me putting my shoes on in my brain meant I had to get in the car. That meant I was going to be at this meeting versus, oh, I can put a shoe on and just sit here and watch TV for a minute. Like breaking it up into baby steps so that my system can realize that most of these steps are not actually threatening. It's when I try to compress it all and deal with it all at once that it becomes too much.
Ah, even even though I sometimes have pushed myself.
Even though I often have pushed myself.
I'm no baby.
I am no baby.
I shouldn't have to take baby steps.
I shouldn't have to take baby steps.
What if that's a magical misconception?
What if that is a magical misconception?
Babies figure out a lot.
Babies figure out a lot.
Eyebrow. My body needs time to calm.
My body needs time to calm.
Side of the eye. My body needs time to confidence.
My body needs time to confidence.
Under the eye. Small steps give me a moment to pause.
Small steps give me a moment to pause.
Under the nose. It keeps me from getting stalled.
Even though I feel like I'm getting stalled.
It keeps me from getting
Oh,
stalled.
it keeps me from getting stalled.
Yeah, because I'm actively calming and confidencing myself.
Because I'm actively calming and confidencing myself.
And I haven't overwhelmed my system.
I have not overwhelmed my system.
It lets me express myself.
It lets me express myself.
And do things that matter.
And do things that matter.
What if I tried baby steps?
What if I tried baby steps?
Super baby.
Super baby. And this is a place, like, I love the Thriving Now Center is a place, or when I was first doing tapping, the center didn't exist. We had a forum, but I found people in there that I could talk this through with. When I was doing something new, I could share my steps, and so people got to know me, and they're like, that step 3 looks way too big. You know, are you sure you don't need to break that up? And you keep doing step 2. That looks a little easy. Are you like, sitting on the couch watching TV for half an hour after you put one shoe on? Seems like a little bit of a, like, maybe you're being a little bit too easy on yourself. And I'm all fan of being easy, but I think it's also avoidance sometimes. So,
and that's why I believe that when put in the context of the real skill of calming and confidencing yourself, and so baby steps, magical misconception that humans are not actually taking small steps. Some people don't have to, or are not or are pushing themselves so that they don't pause. They might crash later. But to me, a thriving way of living is I'm taking a step that is right sized for where I am. And I'm giving myself a chance to pause. And what do I do in the pause? I'm checking in with myself. Well, my tension rose up to my eyeballs and I'm feeling like I'm already slightly underwater. I'm going to give gravity a chance to empty the tank or settle the tank. And I'm going to build up a little bit of energy too. Like what what makes this matter to me? Um, and the like one of the things that gives me confidence is knowing that I don't have to. I'm not shooting on myself. I'm taking those steps with an intention. But if it doesn't get done, um, very few of the things that I do are life or death on a given day. And I think for most of us, the things that we put on our to-do list are not necessarily life and death in the immediate moment. And so giving yourself this opportunity to be in this kind of rhythm means that you'll have more savvy as the skill builds. You have more savvy to really like boost your confidence up to really show up for a moment and then take a pause.
Mhm.
If you're, during this, as Kathy and I go back and forth, I am actively I'm checking in with my body. I'm maybe closing my eyes just for a moment. I've done this in board meetings, where venture capitalists were investing in the company. This is one of the things that, you know, I did this at 5 o'clock in the morning when she's crying in my face, refusing to go to sleep. The baby step is, oh, she's upset. She's uncomfortable. I don't know why. I'm going to calm myself and I'm going to boost my presence, my confidence. And I could feel the energy between us changed. Did it immediately get better? No, that would have been nice. Reality was we had minutes of doing this. And that's a reality dealing with a child. It's also a reality sometimes dealing with a boss, dealing with a project, dealing with a dream. Um, and the more that we apply this um, baby steps of baby step, pause, calm, confidence, baby step, pause, calm, confidence, you start noticing the way that your body is going back into a rhythm of not being driven at high revs or with pressure or stress, but actually going into a, a sustainable, thriving rhythm, which has this kind of pattern.
Yeah. So just taking baby steps means we're trying never to go too deep, too fast, um, hitting our nervous system. We don't want our survival brain to get activated. So if we haven't left the house in a while or things have changed, someone shared in the chat that they had really started connecting with their body more and they'd lost some weight and they were feeling nervous about going out in the world. For a lot of people, extra fat cells is an armor. And all of a sudden, especially if we haven't been going outside a lot, that can feel really overwhelming. And if we're more connected to our body, then it's going to feel more vulnerable as well. We disconnected from our bodies because they didn't feel safe to connect to when we were little. So if we're connected, there's more chance that someone could maybe hurt us. So just figuring out ways, again, kind of writing a list, like not like I'm going to go out and engage with people for 12 hours today, but like, how can I go out for 5 minutes? How can I walk around the block? How can I met someone for coffee the other day. She hadn't been out much at all either. So we just like, let's do a 20-minute coffee together outdoors. It was really sweet. And we ended up studying longer than 20 minutes because we were both willing to share that we were nervous and it was hard. And so we gave each other permission to leave whenever we needed to. And it was really sweet. But breaking that down and just acknowledging that, yeah, why this used to be easy maybe, or it seemed easier, it's okay right now for it to be hard. It can be just what it is right now. We have a reason for it, and we can heal whatever is coming up so that we can, you know, I don't want to anchor, and I encourage you not to anchor the terror of doing things. I see people that are just going to use their willpower and they muscle it together and they just make themselves, they force themselves through that. One, it's really hard on your body. But it's two, it's anchoring that activity and that location and all those things to that your survival brain is really fearful. It's not going to get easier if you muscle through.
You
It will
tap
get
us on like that magical misconception that I need to muscle through. That's
yeah,
the way that I have to do it. Has to be that kind of
yeah.
energy and
Micro
hardness.
steps. I like that too. Nano steps if you need to.
What would you lead a muscle through?
Even though I really think I might need to muscle through this.
Even though I really think I should muscle through this, I have
And
to.
it shouldn't be that hard.
It shouldn't be that hard.
Tough if I'm scared.
Pardon me?
Tough if I'm scared.
Tough if I'm scared.
I'm not a baby anymore.
I'm not a baby taking baby steps. That's offensive.
I wonder who told me those things
Wonder who told me those things.
and if they were actually right.
And if they were actually right and healthy and balanced and a role model.
Top of the head. I think I have to muscle through all these things.
I think I have to muscle through all these things.
Isn't that what you do?
Isn't that what you do?
What if that just anchors the fear?
Yeah, that's had the effect of anchoring the fear for me.
It anchors that activity with being fearful.
It anchors that activity with being fearful and painful
It
and
anchors,
worse.
sometimes it anchors locations as being fearful
And sometimes it anchors locations with being fearful
or people.
or people.
I don't want to be more fearful.
I really don't want to be more fearful.
What if I could take it in manageable steps
What if I could take it in manageable steps
and anchor competence and calm and confidence?
and anchor my competence, my calm, and my confidence?
I'm just going to do another round. That's not okay.
What are you doing? That is not okay.
Who said that I couldn't do it that way?
Who said I couldn't do it that way?
I feel like it's not okay to do it that way.
I feel like it's not okay to do it that way.
I should really muscle through,
I should really muscle through.
but I don't want to hurt myself.
I do not want to hurt myself again.
And I really do want to anchor a feeling of calm confidence.
And I really want to anchor this feeling of calm confidence.
So maybe it's worth taking a little extra time
Maybe it's worth taking a little extra time
and doing those baby steps
and doing those baby steps,
so I
micro steps,
can, yeah,
manageable steps,
so I can
achievable steps, something I
really,
can fucking do. Get started with.
so I can really anchor calm confidence.
So I can really anchor calm confidence.
I think I read it, some of the Olympians, not all of them, but some of them practiced like just baby steps. Like they don't practice their whole routine out. They'll just practice one aspect of it over and over again till they get it. And then they'll practice another over and over again till they get it. And then they gradually put them together. And they don't practice 10 steps and then put them all together at once. They'll put one next to each other and then they'll add another one. And that gives them that sense of like their body is not trying to remember all the things at once, and that gets into muscle memory. And I would love for each of you to have that and myself and Rick too. Like, what if calm confidence could be a muscle memory? What if we
That's
could
my
help?
that's my intention. Is it's an energy. Our states of being. We're human beings. We have lots of default states of being. Angry, hungry and angry at the same time. Um, frustrated, whatever it is. We look at humans as in their states of being, and there's a lot of different states of being, and I I believe that this interwoven energy of actively calming anxiety, working with our body and gravity as our partner and our own sense of gravitas, our solidness, our aliveness, our physicality, bringing that and calming that so that there's a depth of presence and confidencing. I'm using it as an act, not just as a state. Oh, he's very confident. They're very confident. Um, there's an there's an energetic, emotional, physio-emotional act. It's a verb. The confidence ourselves. There's some things like, oh, I'm going to give myself a pep talk. That can work. Doesn't work for me. For me, confidencing is it comes from a place of why, what does this matter to me? Why does this matter to me? Um, what am I standing on in terms of my life experience and my competencies? If I have no talent, no skill at all, I am still standing on like a, a desire to learn Spanish, a desire to feel the poetry of another language in my life, an ability to hear people um, speaking in their native tongue around me and be able to smile and feel the friendliness of ¿qué tal? I started with nothing, but I was standing on my curiosity and my desire. I'm not talented with learning languages other than English, but I'm developing a talent and I can feel it. So when I confidence myself now for 385 days of studying, what it says is, hey, I'm actively tapping into that which matters that I'm clear about. And that's an active process. Some days it happens really naturally, like, ooh, I'm looking forward to it. And then other days it's like, why am I going to go in there and not remember what that verb conjugation is again? Um, that's like a magical misconception that I'm quieting. And this we can do with anything that you feel something that matters to you. You can confidence yourself around what you've endured, how you've healed and grown. How did you show up? I I tell you, you're if you understood the exceptional nature of those that are doing this emotional work, um, it reminds me of the Hidden Figures movie of the women that were programming for NASA. The first female programmers of the IBM mainframe, the ones that really made a difference in the NASA program. You know, we're not real big and visible, but the people that are tuning to real skills, emotional skills, as things that are worthwhile to cultivate and adding that to the other things that we're also competent at, I think is my hope is that we will be the ancestors that have started to model emotional world work, environmentalism, tending to our circles and our we spaces in a different way because we can show up with less misconception, able to be with what fresh fears come up, and then be able to drop in, calm ourselves, confidence ourselves, and be with each other in an expressive way.
Mhm. And I found too, like when I've really focused on doing these baby steps and feeling comfortable, I've actually re-anchored pleasure with things that I used to hate to do. So things like writing a newsletter, like a lot of people are like, oh, it's heavy. Well, for me, I taught myself just to, like, I took baby steps and I focused on the pleasure and I stayed in the moment. And a lot of times it was just like I could not write a newsletter. Like it was so fun. It was more fun than the Facebook cats. Or, and I've helped some clients do that too, where it's like this thing they really hate. We broke it down in steps and we tapped on the resistance and let go of old things and let go of willpowering on their way through and just started being mindful with it. And there's aspects like that. Sometimes the whole thing became something they love to do. So we really can reverse that. And we're not going to do that with willpower and pain. It's just not going to happen.
I want to feel the pleasure in my expression.
I want to feel the pleasure in my expression.
Willpower and pain are not going to take me there.
Willpower and pain are not going to take me there.
I'm starting to feel more open to other possibilities.
I am starting to feel more open to other possibilities.
I wonder how my body and mind can guide me.
I wonder how my body and mind can guide me.
And it is going to take energy.
It is going to take energy.
Energy is wonderful.
Energy is wonderful.
I'd love to feel more vibrancy.
I'd love to feel more vibrancy.
Love to feel more of my depth of power.
Love to feel my depth more or power
Depth
more.
of power.
Depth of power more.
Even though that might activate a fresh fear or two.
Even though that might activate a fresh fear. Yeah, and I think that one of the big, I love that, Rick. That felt really good to tap on. One of the things is it's if we can pick one thing that we want to achieve and then break it up into those little steps and start practicing clearing that out, we're much more likely to change it than if we kind of like are buckshotting the whole thing. But if we learn that one thing, it helps, like Rick said earlier, there's a holographic effect where if I learn this one thing, I build up the muscles and I can start copying and pasting onto other things. And our survival brain knows that if we focus on one thing, we'll make progress. And if it's scared of that, it will try to distract us by, nope, I've got to do everything at once. And I think that's when I work with clients, sometimes that's the biggest thing is like getting them to that one thing because there's a lot of resistance because if they look at that one thing, they'll make progress. So there's like, oh no, I've got to look at all the things. No, I can't choose. I have to. And it's like, okay, we can do that, but we're going to be moving the whole map forward every time versus kind of spearheading in that one area and proving to our system we can do it. So, yeah, I invite everyone to take a nice deep breath. This process is better done with support. And we're not like, we try never to be pitchy about any of this. The center that Rick made is free. You can go and meet really amazing people. And I traded tapping and support with people for many, many years. There's also, Rick has the circle, Thriving Now Circle. So if you want to do more tapping and with support guided by Rick and a few other amazing people, that's there. And Rick does some amazing coaching. I do some coaching too when it fits on my schedule. But please don't think that you have to do this by yourself. There's, find a buddy, talk to someone. When we're alone, our survival brain is much more fearful. And if we're fearful about something, we are very bad judges about how hard we should push. Most of us are brought up in the willpower pain method of getting through stuff. And we don't judge well for ourselves. Talking about it out loud, sharing with someone else, helping them like, did you make a baby step? No, not yet today. Do you want to do it now while I wait? Can really help us get like sometimes just getting a little bit of a jump start and knowing someone cares can make a huge difference on whether we take those baby steps or not. And it's really easy to get distracted by Facebook, the resistance, the having to do it all. And then 10 years have passed or 16 months has passed or whatever it is, and we haven't done it. And I think the more we exercise these muscles, the more our life gets really delicious.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Circle, that supports so much of this, and those of you that have supported the workshops by spreading the word, providing some financial support is deeply appreciated. So from a very easy-ish standpoint, if there's something that you would like to do to express yourself and you'd just like to have somebody to share it with, but right now you're not feeling like you have someone else, Kathy and I both receive emails to support@thrivingnow.com. So if you email us, we'll see it. And I read all my emails. I don't always guarantee a reply, but I do try to acknowledge those people that are expressing. Out on the center, thrivingnow.center, there is something about being around a different energy space that, while it is not Facebook, it's not trying to be Facebook. It's trying, it is for those of us that are participating. I I find that having a place where I can share something that matters to me, my morning mile. My morning mile has been a lot easier and more consistent because I'm sharing it with others. Every once in a while, when I hit a milestone or I notice something, I will add to that topic. And the it's a simple thing, but the things that we want to do that are dear to us as humans, we're meant to share those. We're meant to be witnessed and recognized. To be recognized is to be seen and felt and understood. And that is the intention of the center, for you to have an awkward at first and a developed sense of being seen and felt and understood, even in the imperfectness of words and electronics. Um, so yeah, it's there for you and for all of us. So thank you. Thanks again, Kathy.
My
We
pleasure. It was
welcome the
great to be.
questions. We welcome your engagement, and we're setting up our calls for August. We'll have 2 more.
Yes. Keep rocking
So,
it. And if you have ideas for calls, feel free to drop that too. If there's topics you want to see, drop it in the center or email us at support@thrivingnow. We want to hear.
yeah. Thanks.
So,
Bye.
have a great night.